Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. So hi everyone and welcome to Ibi Speaks. My name is Ibi and guess what everyone? I am excited, delighted to have my guest Bolanle Shobowale here today. Bolanle, how are you?
I'm good. I'm excellent. Beautiful.
Fantastic. So guys, this month of October, I'm doing a series on living well beyond your golden years, and in your golden years and beyond. And I've had two speakers already speak about several, a few aspects of our lives. So I had Dr. Debbie Maduka speak on autoimmune diseases, the causes, the symptoms, and the management. And last week, to mark the World Mental Health Day, I had a mental health specialist, Brenda O'Keefe, speak on looking after our mental health in our older years. And guys, I think you've got to see that. She had absolute nuggets to help us to know our mental states and practical tips on how to maintain healthy mental health as we go older. And today, I want to talk about financial planning. And I have financial planning expert, Bolanle Shobowale, to talk about it. Yeah? Yeah. So guys, the outcome of today's program would be to learn financial tips that would help you in several stages of your life. So for example, if you're retired, stay tuned. If you're about getting retired, stay tuned. If you're in a financial rut, stay tuned. If you want to know how to plan, stay tuned. So guys, I just want to say thanks everyone for joining me today. And if you're a first-time viewer and you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do. It's Ibinabo Enebi. And you can be a part of today's program by leaving your questions or your comments. And you can also like and share today. Yeah? So are we ready? Bolanle, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, very good. So I just want to give a brief introduction. You are a financial expert. You have over 20 years in this field. And from what I read about you, because I snoop, right? You have a proven ability to strategize and implement client management strategies and client-driven account management operations. You have served with Stanbic IBTC Pension as head, benefit administration and client services, Stanbic IBTC Nigeria head, customer experience and integrated processing center, and head client services group in Stanbic IBTC pension managers. And that's not all. Prior to this, you served with Mainstream Bank as the senior manager, client services, and head of business development and product innovations. And this is the big one for me. You formulated quality assurance standards that client complaints by 42% within a year. You rolled out the digital channel strategy that generated $5.5 million in revenues over 5 months and spearheaded culture change and rebrandishing that increased productivity by 28%. You go, girl. So, when it comes to the subject matter of financial planning, you know what you're saying. Let me start by asking you this question. From your experience as a financial expert, what would you say is the most common financial mistakes and financial mistakes that people make?
All right, thank you so much, Ibinabo. Thanks for having me. And so in the normal pro unitate culture, I'm not allowed to call Ibinabo, so I'm going to call her Senior Ibinabo. Ibinabo used to be my senior in FGGC Abuloma. So if we have any pro-unitary person, can I just see your hands up? So thank you, Senior Ibinabo.
Thank you, my darling.
Thanks for having me. I don't take this for granted in any way. And so what are the common, I see you, Kenke.
Yeah, Kenke has your hand raised, yeah.
Yeah. So what are the common mistakes and myths that, I'll start with the myths. So you hear things like, tomorrow will take care of itself. I don't know how many of you have heard of things like that. Everything will be okay. It will be well. We'll be fine. Last. In fact, there's this new one now. I'm about to ask several people what it means. Last, everybody will
everything will be okay.
Everybody will break fast. I'm like, what's this breakfast thing that they're talking about? And so there's this myth around, old age will take care of itself. I'll be fine. Things will just kind of work out and all of that. I really don't have to plan. Tomorrow has itself, sorted. It's one day at a time. You hear things like my stomach is my bank. Live for now. Who knows tomorrow? You just hear all sorts of things. And, people kind of also subconsciously believe those things, even though they're said jokingly. And people are just like playing around and all of that, but really that's what people are acting out. So that meet around, it's old age, will be fine. It's finances, will be fine. And there's this very common one, not my portion. There's the not my portion. There's some things that can happen because there are different aspects of financial planning that, we would eventually get to in the course of our conversation and all of that. And you hear things like, oh, it can happen to me, not my portion, and what have you. Now, the common mistake, one of the most common mistakes I've seen, either in terms of my personal life, as in just by engagement and by association and just observation, let me put it that way, and just also from a professional perspective in the course of my career, is that a lot of people don't even know what they earn and what they spend. So people kind of know what their salaries are, put in quotes, they know what their income is, but a lot of people do not know what their expenses are. So they know that, yes, I earn, say, $5,000, or I earn 500,000 naira, or I earn 3,000 euros, or whatever the case is. The one side of their P&L, they know, one part of their revenue statement they know, but the other part they don't know, meaning that they don't know what actually goes out or where even their money is going to. So if you ask an average person today, where do you spend most of your money? The person will kind of have to like sit down, think about it, reflect, but only very few people can tell you on the spot when you ask them, where is your money going to? What's your biggest line or ticket line item? A lot of people don't know. And that's such a huge mistake because when you don't budget, and we would eventually get there in the course of our conversation, irrespective of how much you earn, if you don't make a conscious effort to sit down to actually plan and say, okay, what am I earning? What am I spending? What am I saving? What am I investing? You're going to run into trouble at the end of the day. So that's a very common one. Also the conversation around, overspending. And why people get into that issue of overspending is because they actually have a false image of what they earn, because they just think that, they have a false image of what their residual or spare income is. So every ashrebi that is around, they want to buy. Every new upgrade of phone, they want to upgrade. And that's really because, they don't know what their expenses, they don't have a proper budget, and it's such a common one. The other mistake I also find with a lot of people, it's where we don't go back to recalibrate. So the way we have strategies in organization, and from time to time we go back to say, okay, is my strategy still valid? Is it still valid as an organization? Are there current, economic nuances that I need to take into consideration and all of that? It's the same way it is with our finances, that sometimes people don't go back to say, you know what, at a time we're spending like this or we're behaving like this as a family, but then we're a family of 3, we're a family of 4. Now we're a family of 5. Now we have a grandparent that is retired that we are now responsible for. What are the things that we need to rejig? or at a time, all our children were in primary school, or all our children were in secondary school. Now we have children that are maybe in university and the expenses are, so people don't go back to sit back to, just relook their financial economy or their financial state, as it were. So those are some of the very common mistakes I see: overspending, not budgeting, frivolous, also mistaking needs with wants. And I believe in the course of the conversation, we would also get there, because a lot of times we also move our wants into our need buckets. The needs are the things that without them you cannot survive, as it were. They are mandatory. The wants are the nice to have. If they are there, they make us feel good. But if they are not there, you're not going to die. Nothing is going to happen to you.
I like when you said false image of what they earn. Fantastic. That's a very good starting point. Yeah. Now, the next question I want to ask you is that, so you've given us the mistakes that we made and, the myths and the mistakes. But I want to ask you, a lot of people are not smiling financially. The current financial climate in the world is nothing to smile about. Do you think that people can still plan for their future with the kind of financial backdrop that we have?
All right, thank you very much, Nabo. And I believe there is no better time to save, to plan your finances than now, or at any situation. Yeah, so the streets are not smiling, like people would say.
Yeah.
There is, and I think it's globally. And that's the more reason why people need to sit back and plan. And so, we can't talk about financial planning if we don't talk about financial goals. Before you can plan, you need to have a goal, because it's actually the goal that fuels your plan. And so it's that goal that lets you know that, okay, what's my goal? What am I planning towards? The goal of a single lady, for example, is perhaps very different from the goal of someone that is in their 50s, about to retire, their children, about getting into university or whatever. So the goals are different. And whether there is a downturn, an upturn, there is still expenses. There's still expenses to be incurred. There are things to be done. And as long as you have goals, as long as there are daily expenses that you have to that you have to incur, then you must plan. And I know that sometimes people go like, oh no, the money is not even sufficient, to plan. The money is not enough. And my first question to people when they say, oh, the money is not enough to plan, whether it's a young person, a millennial, a middle age, about to retire, is that, you're still spending money on data. And this speaks a lot to people back home. You'll be amazed at how much people are spending on their phones. You'll be amazed at how much people are spending on things that I consider not exactly very necessary. So, someone is getting married. I think thanks to COVID right now, because of the pandemic, there's been a bit of slowdown on that. But you'd find out that the same person that cannot put money aside to save can put money aside to buy the latest human hair, can put money aside to buy data, to watch some funny things. So if you're spending to improve yourself or to invest in yourself, so like you bought data now to listen to Ibi because you want to get better, you want to acquire knowledge, there's so much knowledge on the internet, that's a great thing. But if all you're doing and consuming of the internet is entertainment, and there's nothing wrong in entertainment in itself, but you cannot spend all of your income or all of your spare income to actually just feed on getting yourself excited and being entertained. Now, so when you ask whether people can still save, yes, people can still save, and they should save. As a matter of fact, this is the time to save. And there's a concept of delayed gratification. So when things like this happen, it's also a time to also begin to do some cutbacks, because that's just the reality. I always say to people that those that have lost their jobs, those are things that have happened to, you're not in any way better than them. Things do happen. And that's why there's a concept of emergency fund, opportunity fund, and all of that. This is the time, because organizations are downscaling, things are happening and all of, so you cannot afford to just go into that myth of, oh, tomorrow will be fine. I'm immune and all of that. Yes, the money might not be enough, but there's this concept I always encourage people to work with. Assume a pay cut of 20%. And we've seen organizations do it all over the world. Some organizations go like, we don't want to downsize. we would rather do a pay cut. And there is a pay cut, and everybody continues to live. Nobody dies.
Yeah.
So why don't you assume that pay cut by yourself and say, you know what, out of this little that I'm earning, yes, it's not a lot, but you know what, I'm going to save. And savings is a culture. If you do not learn to save when you earn little, trust me, when you earn a lot, you will not save. Because what typically happens is that, you know what, your expenses continues to grow.
Yeah.
Your appetite continues to grow. Your lifestyle continues to grow.
Yeah.
If you do not understand the concept of discipline, delayed gratification, and just denying yourself of some things right now and saying, you know what, this is my goal. I'm saving to be able to do an MBA. I'm saving because I want my children to go to a good university. I'm saving because, yeah. So it's still a good time. Yes, things are a bit difficult. You know, things could be better, and that's the truth all over the world. But it's still a good time to save. And what you just need to do sometimes is to scale back on some things that are not relevant. There would always be time for those things, and that's the truth. You will eventually get to those things later.
Fantastic. Now, fantastic, Bolanle. Can you hear me? Now, there's something that you've said. What happened?
I can hear you.
Fantastic. We're going to go delayed gratification, and all of that are the tips. So we're going to talk about those. Those are the solutions. Yeah. So we're going to build up to get to that point. Now, you talked about financial goals. Yeah. And I'm kind of like interested in that because you said, for example, and assume that people are listening today, we have a broad spectrum of people listening to us. So there could be singles, there could be married, there could be you know, young people, that could be retired and planning for retirement. So I just want you to give me a case study of a financial goal. For example, somebody who is growing a family. Give us practical tips, because you're saying that if you do not have financial goals, then you won't be able to have financial planning. So just let's have a case study of a particular scenario, and let's see, practically speaking, how a financial goal and financial planning can help.
Okay, so I'll use myself as an example. I put up my hand.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. So 8 years ago, life happened to me. And, you know, just like every normal person, went out, you know, on a Sunday morning, you know, went out as a family of 4, but came back as a family of 3.
Oh my
What
goodness.
does that mean? Yeah. So I lost my late husband.
So sorry.
And, you know, for me, it was such a huge blow, you know, because every other thing in life, you get prepared for it. So you want to get married, there's premarital counseling, you want to go through a divorce. For those, you know, there's something like, I know in some clients, you know, there are people to help you go through that. You want to, you know, you want to have a baby, there's antenatal, almost everything, and in almost every phase, but that's one phase that nothing prepares you for. And, you know, so after that happened, and, you know, I began to navigate the world, you know, life with my 2 children. My daughter was less than 10 at the time. My son was 8 years old at the time. And I remember very well that, you know, my little husband and I, we had very clear goals. We had dreams, we had aspirations for the children and all of that. And when this life event occurred, one of the things I said to myself was that I wanted to see all of those goals come to pass. You know, I made a commitment that, yes, even though it was no longer here, every dream that we had together as a couple, you know, I wanted to see them, you know, come to life. And so one of the things that we really wanted was that we wanted our children to school abroad. And I began to plan my finances around it. So my 2 children today are both in Canada schooling. And my daughter left about 3 years ago. And I remember then, before she left, a year prior to that time, you know, I saved like a mad person. When I mean I saved crazy, I was saving 70% of my income. 70. I literally took out my, you know, my monthly obligations, my tithe, my mortgage. After that, I saved 70. I cut away a lot of things. And so I began to plan towards it. Now, and that was because, you know, the initial cost outlay was was huge. But even subsequently, what did I do? As I got my salary every month, I realized that, you know what, my expense was dollar denominated. And so I began to also save in USD. I'll take my income, change it to USD, and I began to put money aside.
For the benefit of those who don't know what USD is.
Sorry, that's the US dollar. So you have all sorts of dollars. There's a Singaporean dollar, there's a Canadian dollar, there's Australian dollar. So the USD is the United States dollar. So I began to invest in a dollar fund, and we'll get there in the course of investments and all of that. You can find a lot of this investment outlays, you know, in a lot of reputable organizations. And fortunately, I was blessed to have worked through it once, Stanbic IBTC. So I had that opportunity. And so every month I began to grow my dollar fund because I knew that I had a dollar expense. That was my goal. It was a goal for me. I wanted my children to school abroad. And so I had to ensure that my spending, I had to ensure that my investing and all of that spoke to it. Okay. Now, for some people, I'll share another example as well. In 2015, I wanted to do an MBA. Now, I thought of a particular school, and I'd done one some years ago, and I'd started one in 2013, and you know, like I said, life happened in 2013. I dropped it, and you know, I forgot about it. So 2015, I decided to pick it up again, and at the time, I have this family friends that are very, very close to me. They're like family. And so I told them about the school I wanted to go to that I was applying to. And the guy said to me, Bolanle, you're doing MBA after how many years? What's wrong with going to a top 5 school? And I said, top 5, where would I get that kind of money from? And he said to me, have you tried to apply? Have you applied for scholarship? And you know, all the works. And so immediately he sowed that seed in my heart to go to a very nice, a good university for my MBA. I also began to plan. I began to save. So when you have a goal, and why I'm giving these examples is that these for me are actual life goals that I had. And because they were dollar denominated, my investment, my saving had to be dollar denominated. Okay. Because I knew that, you know what, I knew that I couldn't, I didn't have control over the exchange. And so it was important that, you know, my savings, my investing was also aligned with the goals that, you know what, I had. So it could be anything. For some people, it might be, you know what, my goal is to get married as a man, for example, in the next 3 years. And so you're saving towards it. Okay, I want to rent an apartment. Oh, my goal is to buy a car. I live very far away from work. And you know, whatever your goals are, they are valid. Nobody's goals invalidates the other one. Some people's goals might look very audacious and might look very big. Don't ever get intimidated by anyone's. It is your goal. Your goal might be that you want to travel around the world. There was a time that was my goal. I had a goal called 60 by 50. 60 by 50 simply means I wanted to visit 60 countries by the time I was 50 years old. And I was very well on that track. But you know, and that's the thing about having goals, because you also then have to prioritize. At some point, I had to like slow down on it, thanks to the pandemic as well, because I had other goals that were better or bigger priorities. I've done about 23 today, but you know, I was on the way to saying, you know, I wanted to do 60 by 50. So it's about planning. And in those goals as well, you know, you're like saying, okay, what are the things that would help me achieve these goals? I don't know if you're saying anything, Ibinabo, you're frozen.
I'm not frozen, I'm here. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Okay, so and so for me, those were the very practical what's it called, another goal that is very common, since we're speaking to people in middle age, close to retirement. Some people say, you know what, my goal is to retire and retire well. And that's one of the things that we promised in Stanbic IBTC. Now, you would have to forgive me, that's the only place that I've, you know, that's my most recent, and that's what I'm used to. And I can only talk about where I know that, okay, yes, I can beat my chest and know that, okay, yeah, people would get the right service and the right, you know, the right outcomes. Now, in saying you want to retire well, what does that mean? I want to retire and I want to ensure that my lifestyle does not change. My lifestyle does not change. Now, that's where you have things like voluntary contribution, and we would eventually get to that in the course of the conversation. And what does that mean in terms of your financial planning? It means that while everybody is just contributing 18%, which is the mandatory contribution, you're saying to yourself, no, mandatory would not be sufficient for me. I will like to do additional contribution because my goal is that at retirement, my children are not my retirement plan. So you hear people say, oh, my retirement plan, my children are my retirement plan. In fact, even somebody that their child cannot play football, everybody must go and play football because you're my retirement plan. You must, just on a lighter note. And people have, oh, I'm doing this because, I want in old age, my children should take care of me. Yes, that's the ideal. We long for that. We desire that we would have kind children and, children that would be equipped and, be able to take care of us. But it's also important that people plan for their retirement. And for some people, that's their retirement goal. That's their goal, to retire well, to retire into comfort, and nothing should change in their, after years. And so that also influences how they plan their finances. Do I want to save more into my retirement savings account? Do I want to begin to build assets so that I can get rental income? So all of those things ultimately, would influence how you plan because of the goals that you have. Yeah.
Fantastic, Bolanle. Now, we're going to go into the retirement aspect, but I just want to ask you this question yet. So I've heard everything you've said, and you've talked about how you saved about 70% of your earnings at the time. Now, I like to be realistic, and I know that it was easy for you to do because number one, now I'm playing the devil's advocate. So you worked in a financial organization that afforded you that opportunity. So, for example, we're talking to somebody who's a civil servant, for example, whose salary is not as much as what you may have earned. And we're talking about people who sometimes don't get the salaries in time. So for example, there are people who work in the state government and they don't pay them as frequently as they would pay. So how, in those instances, do we save up 70% of our income?
Okay, so there's this general rule around financial planning, the 50, 30, and 20. And they usually will say 50 should go towards your needs, 30 towards your wants, and 20 towards your savings. I have a different school of thoughts around that distribution. And the reason I usually say that is that people's circumstances are different. For some people, they might not be able to even save that 20% because that, it just cannot happen because of the level of responsibility that they have and what the income
now you're
is.
Speaking, yeah.
Yes.
Now you're speaking.
And so there are no hard and fast rules about it. What I always say to people is that never be afraid to start. Start small. For me, it's the consistency and the discipline that is more important than the action, than the amount itself.
Fantastic.
So you might be a civil servant and you're, say, on 70,000. Remember what we spoke about earlier about delayed gratification, about, just closing your eyes to some things. My mom was a civil servant, God rest her soul. And I never, I don't know that I ever, and I say this confidently, and I stand to be corrected. I don't think I ever saw my mother eat out. My mother always took her meals to work because she would say to you what, I can't afford it. On the office in you, meaning that the office food is too expensive. So these things are about sacrifices. There are things like a job, and that's like the monthly contribution. And what those things afford people is that, you're already committed, you've already collected. So let's say there are 10 people, for example, contributing, say, 10,000 every month, and you're the first person to collect, the second person to collect. You've already collected the money, so you have bulk money that allows you to start something small by the side. And then it's an interest-free loan. It's a kind of community effort, as it were. It's been there forever. Just ensure that it's with credible people and all of that. Banks also do have what we call target savings, where every month, you're saving towards something. It's not about the quantum or the size of the savings, so that people don't get it wrong. It's about the consistency. It's about it's about starting. Start from where you are. Even if it is 5,000 naira you can afford, just take that 5,000 naira out every month, every week, or depending on, whether you're salaried or whether you're an entrepreneur, whatever your situation is, just start from where you are. More importantly for me is the culture of savings that you're trying to drive at, and say that, this money, come rain, come shine. It is not money for Mashrebi. It is not money for, you know what, there's one new phone, that comes. It's interesting when I hear things like what people say. You'll be amazed at the kinds of phones that even people that say that they don't earn well use. Senior Ibi. So this person is saying, and there is nobody there's nobody with empty hands. There's always something in our hands that we can use. There's always something. Some people, the phone that they are carrying can change their destiny. All they need to do is go to Computer Village, go and trade it in and buy one palasa and buy one small one that they just use it to do. Yeah, hello, how are you? Finish. Later on, especially when they are not into technology business or you don't need to be on the internet. My point is that there are things that people are holding on to right now that people can actually convert to cash. Today, you have a lot of small entrepreneurs that buy off you used stuff that you're no longer using. People have shoes, bags, and all of that. Those things are just, it's called delayed gratification. There'll be a time that you'll be able to buy it. And I've seen people that haven't earned so much and have made something out of life. And they've been able to, it's the discipline. Set small goals. That's another thing I'd like to talk about. Start small. You can't be earning 70,000 or 100,000. And your goal is that, I want to buy land in Banana. And the amount is 500 million. Don't kill the bear and the lion first. Start small, start gradually. There's nothing that breeds success as much as success. When you start small, you have that small goal, you save towards it, you achieved it, you feel energized, you feel motivated, you're like, I can do it after all, and all of that. And the purpose of savings, don't forget, is to invest. Savings is not just to save and keep. That's not what savings is for.
The purpose of savings is to save and invest.
It's to save and invest. It is to save and invest. It's not to save and lock it up somewhere. That is not how wealth is grown. You save and invest. So as you're saving, you're like thinking, okay, I'm looking for an investment opportunity. Is it a land I want to buy? Is it a business I want to start? Is it a skill? Is it a skill I want to acquire? Because even when you acquire a skill, it's an investment. It's an investment in yourself.
Fantastic. Well, my camera is acting up. And
we can see your picture.
You can see my picture, so that's fine. Now, you have spoken extensively about the civil servants, and I have learned so much. And one of the negatives that I've learned here is the purpose of saving is to save and invest. So now, guys, what I want to say is that if you like this video, and if you'd like to leave a comment or a question, kindly do, because my guest today is an expert and she is on fire and she will be able to answer your questions. But before I go any further, I would like to read out some of the comments that we have here. Now, I'm not going to read out names, but I'll just read out what people have said. So, and this is what one of them says. It says, your financial plan must align with your financial goal. It is important that your savings must also align with your goals. Your goals are valid. Do not let any other person's goal intimidate or invalidate your goals. The purpose of saving is to invest. Wealth is built through investment and not saving. I want to go to this question, and because I have a few retirees here. And so last week I had an article on my website, onewomanity.com, and a fine gentleman who's just recently retired chronicled his experiences, on retirement. And I know that you have 10 years handling the pensions in IBTC. So I'm going to quote exactly what he said, and I want you to react to it. He said, when I said earlier that retirement isn't a stroll in the park, it had to do in part with the bureaucratic processes of accessing my retirement savings account, RSA, with my pension funds administrator, PFA. That's what he said. And he said, Keep an eye on your investment and don't allow your PFA to make you suffer needless loss from the poor investment of your funds. And not only that, I also had to change my PFA because of poor returns on my investment to a more prudent PFA. So what are these, and what would you advise based on your experience?
Okay, thank you very much, Ivy. And that's a very, very emotive topic. And the reason I say that is that the average retiree would have either worked for 35 years if he's in public service, or 60, except for those in the university environment where they're allowed to work till they're 70, and 65 for the non-academic staff. And I can imagine someone having worked for 35 years trying to access their benefit, and, having, and the process is very difficult. Now, I'm going to speak from the standpoint of what I know and what I've experienced.
Yeah.
Retirement withdrawal or accessing your benefit at retirement does not need to be tedious. It can be easy, it can be smooth, and it can be seamless. However, there's a huge portion of that, or having that kind of experience, that also rests on the client. And let me start with that. Now, there's something that was introduced, I think 2-3 years ago, called data recapture, where clients were expected to go to their PFAs and recapture their information and get into the electronic contributory system, where, it's not, yes, you've opened your RSA, maybe you opened it 10 years ago, 11 years ago. However, the regulator says visit a PFA, visit your PFA, sorry, and recapture your information. We've been on this journey for, say, 3 years. And I use the word we because I believe very strongly I'm still a part of that industry. And, the PFAs, even the regulator brought out, information, please go. But, there's this thing around pension. Pension is quite passive. It's a passive relationship, unlike what you find with what you find with your normal banking account, your normal everyday savings and current account. You interact with it every day. Now, because of the way pension is structured, your contribution goes in, you can't access it except you lose your job, and after 4 months you don't get a job, and then you can come for a 25% job loss once in your lifetime, or you wait till retirement if you're 50, or if you're in the public service. So a lot of people don't pay attention. So even though there's been a lot of communication, engagement, go and do your data recapture, people don't take it seriously. Now, people then come around when they are retired to come and do it. Now, the expectation is that I'm retired. And this person that you read his comment sounds very much like a civil servant. And that's why I'll break the process into two for both public servants and private sector, because the process is completely different for the two of them, up to when their account is funded. At the time that their account is funded, it's almost the same thing. But up to when the account is funded, is almost the same. So we say, come and do your data recapture. Now, people don't do that. Wait till they are retired and they come around. Now, for you to do your data recapture, the most important document that is very important is your NIN, your national identification number. Now, what you find with a lot of people is that there is a date of birth issue. Nigeria is one of those countries where people have multiple dates of births, knowingly or unknowingly. We've had cases where it just happened, either because their BVN date of birth was migrated to the NIMSI, and so that's no fault of the client. But we also have people that when they were going to start work, because remember, for civil service is retirement at 60. And so the further away you're from 60, the better for you. So at the time that they were registering, they used a different age. In fact, when people even move service from one place to the other, the date continues to change. So I can tell you, I've seen people with 3 dates of birth. And people will tell you to your face, Madam, is it your date of birth? I am saying now, I went to the village and they have just confirmed to me that I was born on so date. Now, prior to the ECRS, it was very easy. It wasn't very, we would ask you to get a sworn affidavit, get a letter, and then we would, pass it to the regulator, they would approve and would update. It's a different ball game right now. Now, there's only one version of truth for us as a country, and it's important that we get there. On this call, we have people from all over, and there is nowhere in the world where, when they pull up your social insurance number, your social security number, it's the same person all over on any platform. But that's not the case. So we then tell people you have to go and correct it at NIMSI, and that process, my sister, is horrendous. As in, you don't even want to go through it. So the retiree is upset, is offended, is angry, and all of that. And that can happen to whether it's private sector or public sector. That cuts across. The second thing is what we call the accrued rights. Now, what we call by accrued right? The contributory pension scheme started in 2005. So if you're a public servant, every work that you have done prior to 2005 is your accrued benefits, because then it was defined benefit and all of that. And so when we moved to, to the contributory pension, you started contributing, say, from 2005. So all of the work and all of your benefits prior to that time, government is expected to put it into your RSA, and that forms part of, your lump sum and, your bulk money, which is like a gratuity, and how we compute your monthly. Now, if the government does not fund that account, if your accrued right does not come in, the retiree cannot access his benefits. And that's why I say it's a bit different for private and public sector. For private sector, there's nothing like that. Whatever is in your RSA, whenever you join the organization, is what is there. You get your monthly. Even if you join the organization prior to that time, some organizations have what we call the approved existing scheme. So they left whatever their pension benefit was prior to the contributory pension scheme, and they're managing that with an asset management company or even with a pension organization. But it's easier. So please, for those that are nearing retirement, let me just summarize. Ensure that the date of birth on your NIN, your national identity number, and what you have with your PFA is the same thing. Please ensure that it aligns. If it does not align, start that process today. As in on Monday, as we finish this, start it immediately. Go to NIMSI. That thing can take as much as 6-7 months. Yes. It's such a painful process. And there is nothing the PFA can do until we have that version of truth where your date of birth, aligns across all across all the platforms. Yes, whether it's the bank, whether it's your pension, so it's important that that is done. The second thing is the data recapture. If you have not recaptured if you've not gone to your PFA to update your information, please do so. Visit your PFA, do your data recapture, provide them with your most recent information, because don't forget, a lot of us as well, a lot of us use emails that are domains of our organization. When we retire, you no longer have access to that what's it called. So I always encourage people, use Gmail, use Yahoo, use things that even after work, you still have access to it. So I think that's and I know another thing that retirees are very upset about a lot of times is their lump sum. So you hear people saying, "Oh, I want all my money." You can't have all your money. You can only have all your money if it's less than 550,000. Once your money is more than 550,000, we shall be programming it. Or rather, your PFA. Let me stop saying your PFA shall be programming it. So your PFA is going to program it. And there are 4 factors that influence what you get at retirement. You have your age at retirement. You have your gender, whether you're male or female. And I'm sure somebody is wondering why. Because life expectancy is different from, for both genders. So in Nigeria, we use a mortality table that says the life expectancy for a man is 82 and the life expectancy for a female is 84. So I've said your age, your gender, your RSA balance at retirement, and your last salary. Those are the 4 things that influence what you get at retirement, whether it's all of it, whether it's 50%, whether it's 25%, that's what actually determines it. But it doesn't have to be a painful process, and that's why I always say, follow who know road. That's why
Follow who no road. So now you know road.
Follow Stanbic IBTC. Follow who no road. No stress, no accou.
Bolanle, we have listened. We have not even scratched the surface, but we will just first try. Now, what I want to do now, guys, if you are finding this very enlightening, I would like you to kindly leave your comment on my YouTube, like this video, and share it. Bolanle, let me ask you the questions that my viewers are asking. Let me check what I have here on YouTube. Somebody says, can you build wealth or start a business or build or buy a property without borrowing or getting financial help from financial institutions?
That's almost like jam question, and I would attempt to answer. And it would vary from person to person. So someone that was left a huge inheritance, yes. For someone that is trying to build, gradually, and I know that in a lot of climes, let's even say Nigeria, buying a property, its mortgage is not very common, but we are getting there gradually. The first property I bought, I used a mortgage. I got a mortgage and all of that, and it's always easier. Now, I tell people that if you get a chance to get a mortgage that is rightly priced, by all means, please go for it.
Okay.
There is no point. So let's assume, for example, you've saved up, say, 30 million. There's no point carrying 30 million naira and going to give someone to buy a property. Because don't forget that, you know what, even though that property is an asset, especially when you're living there, it's not really generating any income. It's not really generating any income. So why not take out 30% of that 30 million, which is 9 million, use it as equity, get a mortgage. And I've used the phrase rightly priced. Now, rightly priced would also vary because someone is going to ask me, what's the right pricing? We are also, there was a time in Nigeria that we're only giving double digits as savings interest. So if your interest rate is double digits, you can be rest assured that your mortgage rate too will be sure that the banks do not mint money. It is other people's money that they are borrowing us. So if they have a base exposure to give a Mr. Damola that has invested his interest at 12%, for example, you can be rest assured that they need to pay salaries, they need to do all sorts, and so your mortgage cannot be less than that, if you get what I mean. So if you get a rightly priced mortgage, please, by all means, because you can then deploy your 21 million, the remaining 21 million, into investing. You can invest, and there are different investment vehicles. You can buy mutual funds. You can say, I want to invest into another. If I can decide to even do two real estate, while one becomes like rental and all of that. One is for investment purposes, and one is one that you live in. As long as your repayments, your salary can accommodate your repayments, because there's also, don't forget, there's a 33 1/3 rule, meaning that your salary, your monthly deductions cannot exceed 33 1/3 of what you earn. So a loan should not put you in a financial mess where you're now constrained and all of that. So my point is, you can, but I think it's not the norm for a lot of people in terms of building wealth and, buying properties and all of that. You would always need a bank. But if you can do it by yourself, I just think sometimes it might be slower. If you have family members, if you have friends that are able to invest into you, whether it's equity, whether it's debt, whatever, that would be good. You don't always have to go to the bank. But if, in the absence of family inheritance or family or friends or people to give you some of this monies to start a business, there is nothing wrong with taking loans, whether it's loans to start a business. There's a problem with taking loans to finance lifestyle. Because I don't care what anybody says to you. Do not take a loan to finance a lifestyle. You cannot take a loan to be traveling abroad. It's a problem. It's a spiritual problem. Let me see.
So you need deliverance. Bolanle, listen, let me take some of these questions. We've not even scratched. In fact, Bolanle, you have to come back again. But let me take this question. So Bolanle, Thanks for the great insights. I like how you said saving to invest. I will say I'm an aggressive saver, but recently I am looking at investing my money, but also worried about risking my hard-earned money. Would you be able to give me tips on safe investments? Are stocks good? Thanks.
Okay, so and I really like that question. Thanks so much. Now, even in investing, you know, one of the things that is very important in financial planning is also to understand your risk appetite. You must understand you must have an investment policy as a person. You must have an investment policy or an investment strategy. So for some people, they just only do real estate and they'll tell you, oh, you can't go wrong. Not necessarily. If you go into the market at the wrong time, it can go wrong. It's just that, you know what, it's going to be there and the possibility of it appreciating, it's more. So, and there are quite a number. Like I said, you can do mutual funds. And even in the mutual funds, you have what we call the guaranteed funds, meaning that, you know what, whatever happens, your principal is guaranteed. You have the money market fund. And what's a mutual fund? It's just an accumulation of funds from different places, as in where you can enjoy economies of scale. Your investments, your asset manager is able to operate in terrains that your own $100 or $200 might not be able to, you know, step into. And all of that is a diversified portfolio. You know, they buy different things. And even in doing the mutual funds, you know, they are the ones that are high risk, they are the ones that are medium risk, they are the ones that are low risk. You know, so they're kind of like balanced funds. It cuts across different industries. And so what you typically find with an asset manager is that, you know, what an investment manager is that he is more experienced. He can read the markets. Unlike you know, if say for example, an organization is about to buy another or going into a merger, you know, the asset management company, the investment manager is able to interpret that to say, okay, what would this likely mean? And they can take position. You're not, if you're not financially savvy, that information, that news means nothing to you. You know, you're not able to interpret the implication or the impact of what that news, you know, would be. Also, US election, people sit down and are able to say, okay, this might be the implication. So and that's why I kind of like working with asset management companies. And like I always say, you know, the beautiful thing, you know, about Stanbic IBTC is that we have everything. There's also the asset management company and all of that. And if you're in say Canada, I know there are quite a number of organizations as well that can help you. I can see my brother Damola on the call. They can help you with all of those investment opportunities and the things, you know. So never be afraid. Don't be afraid, but don't be greedy. So, you know, have your investment policy, have your investment strategy. You know what? I only want conservative. When you're talking to your financial advisor, tell the person, I'm conservative. Some people have the spirit of Tartan spirits. You know what Tartan would interpret? Tartan spirits mean let's go all the way, let's go there, nothing they happen. The market will bounce back. They have the lions that, as in, they are very bold. They are risk takers, but they also take calculated risk. They've studied the market. You know, and if you want to do individual stock by yourself, there are organizations that have good fundamentals. You know, so what do you mean by fundamental? They are doing real business. You can see the business growth. You can see, so the stocks are good. Don't buy anything blindly. You know, if you want to do stocks as well, the Stanbic IBTC stockbrokers, they can guide you. If you say, you know what, I don't want to be bothered about the everyday fluctuation, I'd rather just talk to a professional and let somebody else worry about that. And you know, in ceding that responsibility to the person, you can also tell the person, I'm a conservative person. So you know what, I don't want a portfolio that is too, you know, that has too much stock in it. I'd rather do money markets, you know, and all of those things are possible. And please, whoever asked that question, it sounds like a lady. Please go ahead, you know, to invest, please.
Fantastic. Well, and now I want to ask a question. Now, you know, we have our audiences are mixed. Some people are very savvy, some people aren't. So I want you to just break it down a bit more. So for example, mutual funds, asset management and stuff like that. If there's somebody who is hearing this for the first time, some people just know savings accounts. we just know fixed deposit, right? So how would the person, maybe the person have 5 million, 2 million and stuff like that in their account. So how would they approach these kinds of things?
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Binabo. And so yes, savings, fixed deposits, all of those things are good. What mutual funds, stock, stock buying and all of that. Those are just other avenues of investing your money. And if you want to do it, just talk to your account officer. Now, some institutions do not provide an end-to-end, and that's why I say for us in Stanbic, we are an end-to-end financial.
So your marketing Stanbic ITC.
Yeah, and for me, it's an institution that is about 154 years old. We won't gamble. They won't gamble with your money. So I always use the we and they. And all, it's still a bit weird. You can be rest assured that your money is safe. You would also get professional advice.
Okay.
And the truth about it is that even for those that are very risk averse and all of that, people can still hold your hands to say, this one you can almost go to bed. You might not make as much return because the riskier it is, the more the return. Less risky, the less return and all of that. So you can actually go to the StanbicIBTC.com website, and whether it's stockbroking you want to do, whether it's the mutual funds, and you can start with as little as 5,000. That's the interesting thing. Yes. For the Stanbic IBTC, you can start with as little as 5,000 for the asset management. The money market is about 5,000, and even for the dollar fund as well, I think that's about $1,000 to do the dollar fund. Because remember, your goals must be aligned to your plan. If your goal is to say in another 2 years, I would like to go to MIT, I'd like to go to Harvard for my MBA, then you need to begin to save, or you need to begin to plan or invest in that direction. And you cannot say, I'm going to be saving in Naira, because your goals are, dollar oriented. And so you must make sure that it aligns with it.
Fantastic. Now, I want to see other comments here. Someone says here, identity is a major problem in Nigeria. My goal is early retirement. A live verification is another frustration that retirees face. Now, this is another question. What is the plan for retirees living abroad who can't physically visit Nigeria?
So remember, we have two categories of retirees. We have retirees under the CPS, under the Contributory Pension Scheme. And those are retirees, those are people that retired after, I think, 2005. Now, for those that retired under the old scheme, that's what we call them, their life verification is it's very important, because that's the only way that the government knows that the person is still alive. Because otherwise, if they don't do that exercise, they would continue to pay the person every month. And that's not the purpose of defined benefit. That's not the purpose, because nobody lives forever. So the only way that they get comfortable, knowing that the person is still alive, is for them to show themselves. Now, what I think that the government can do, and the good thing is that the regulator, when it comes to pension, they're very open, they're very forward thinking.
Yeah.
They're very forward thinking, is to actually, just the same way you have NIN centers in the country, in different parts of the world, where you can go to and do your, get your national identity sorted and all of that, so those things can also be implemented for those abroad. But right now, that's not the case, especially for the old scheme. You would need to come. But I would also like to say that when you come, if you've been out of the country for a while, I know that the government also tries to pay they pay the outstanding. So let's say you've not done your life verification for, say, 3 years or 4 years you've been abroad. I know when you come and you do it, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you paid your arrears, and I stand to be corrected. I'm more of an expert when it comes to CPS, that's the Contributory Pension Scheme. For Contributory Pension Scheme, there is no life process for it. We continue to pay you every month your pensions. There is nothing like that. You don't need to come. You don't need to come to your PFA. No.
So the next question is, how will they recapture their data with PFAs? I think you've just answered that, yeah?
Yeah, they should just walk into, and quite a number of the PFAs actually have this process online as well.
Okay.
So there's a data recapture form online for a number of the PFAs, yes. So I know a few PFAs have that. So you can go online, fill out your form, and yes, submit your NIN and all the other documentations that are required for data recapture.
So the next question is, what is the percentage of the lump sum at retirement?
Okay, so I think I touched on it briefly. The lump sum is between 25 to 50%. So let's assume that, you know what, you retire today at age 60 and you have, say, 40 million naira in your retirement savings account. It means that you can get between 10 million and 20 million at retirement. Now, there are four things. There are four variables that determine what you get at retirement. Your age.
Okay.
Your gender, your RSA balance, and your last salary. Now, I'm going to try to explain what these four variables do and their importance. Your last salary, because what the Act was trying to achieve, the goal of the contributory pension scheme, that we're trying to see if we could still earn 50% of your last pay. That's what, because there's a template, there's a table that is used in computing it. What that table is trying to achieve is to see whether or not you can get 50% of your last pay. Now, remember, as a retiree, of course, you no longer have some expenses and all of that. And so we generally think that, okay, if you're able to get 50% of your last pay, then you know what, you should be fine. Now, when it comes to the age, I spoke about the mortality table and the life expectancy, 82 for male, 84 for female. Now, if you reach, and your age so the age at which you retire also determines how long your monthly pensions would be paid. So, I'll give a very simple example, because it's possible for two people to retire on the same grade level, or maybe even as colleagues in the private sector. They have the same RSA balance, but one is older than the other. They would not get the same lump sum. And for the purpose of those that don't know what lump sum is like your gratuity that you get at retirement. Is your gratuity, is the bulk money from your RSA that you get at retirement. So it's possible for two people to retire on the same level with similar RSA balance. However, one is older than the other. The older one is likely, or not likely, he will be getting more, more lump sum than the younger person. Yes. So those are the things that, so it's, I can't say to you that this is the particular percentage. And one way to influence what you get at retirement, because it can be influenced, and I use that word very cautiously, it can be influenced by the contributor. And the one way to influence it is what we call voluntary contribution, where you're saving additional monies outside of your 18% mandatory. So there's a mandatory 18% where you're contributing 8 and your employer is matching 10. Some employers even match more than that. So, but that's the mandatory one. However, as a contributor, you can say, you know what, I want to retire well. I have an idea of what I want retirement to look like for me. I don't even want to earn 50% of what I'm earning now. I want to be able to earn, I want to be able to receive monthly pensions of close to what I earn monthly. And so what you can then do is, aggressively, pump into your voluntary contribution. Voluntary contribution is not savings. Prior to this time, some years ago, that was how it was used in the country. People put it in, and after 3 months, they come and collect it. In fact, now when you put your voluntary contribution, you can only take out 50% of a contribution that has stayed up to 24 months. So it is geared towards retirement. And at retirement, if, for example, you have contributed, say, 40 million as your voluntary, as additional contribution, you can get 50% of it at retirement. You can take take it as lump sum, and the balance of the 20 million is added to your RSA balance that is used to program your monthly payments and your lump sum.
Fantastic. Now, I want to take this question here. And someone says, I have left paid employment, but we're still doing some business. Can I be adding to my pension funds until I'm ready to begin collecting it, If yes, can I do it randomly whenever I have funds? The whole idea is, one second now, one second. The whole idea is for you to invest it for me. Yeah?
Okay, so I'll respond to that in two ways. It seems like this person was already in paid employment and then is no longer working. So there's something we call the micro pensions, and that micro pensions is geared towards people that are self-employed, the informal sector, and just to encourage them to save. Now, when you say you now do something of yourself for yourself, is it an incorporated business? Meaning, is it a limited liability organization? How many of you are there? Because if you are as much as 3 of you, you can actually walk up to your PFA and then register that company as an employer, and then you can remit for yourself and your other colleagues. Otherwise, the other thing you can also do is to just do go to asset management, and that's the mutual fund, and whatever you would have be contributing into your RSA, because now you're no longer working, and you don't want to register your business is not a limited liability company. You don't want to do micro pensions. You can still set money aside with the asset management with an asset management company and still save every month, and they will still invest it for you. Yes, we have, and there's similar investment vehicles. That's the truth. We have different regulators and different investment guidelines, but the truth is that your money will still get invested for you.
Even as a sole trader, yeah?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So somebody says on YouTube here, what an interesting topic. Somebody says, thanks, Bolanle, you really know road. And she says, I will make sure Stamping IBTC pays you for this advert. It's not an advert, so it's just
no, it's not an advert, it's the truth.
It's
it's not an advert in any way. It is the truth. As in, for me, it's about an organization that would hold your hands, and they would help you achieve your goal. Because don't forget that financial planning is not a destination, it's a journey. And on every journey you need a reliable partner.
Financial
planning. Yes, and you can be rest assured that there would be that partner.
Now, Bolanle, we've talked about a lot, and I think that we would have to do a part 2 on this. Yeah? Do you agree? Do I commit you to a part 2?
Okay, not a problem.
Fantastic.
You're my senior. You can tell me to kneel down and raise up my hand now.
Well, no, you don't have to. You don't have to do that again. You're a big girl now. So now I want to ask you this question, and we have spent quite a few minutes, but then I still want to let you loose. So, Bolanle, I want you to give us some top tips that we must know to secure a stable financial future. We've talked about investments, there's cryptocurrencies, I wanted to just elaborate quickly on delayed gratification and stuff like that.
I had a bit of what's it called, and like you said, we'll probably have to do this some other time. But a few things that I want people to leave here with. You cannot be financially free if you do not budget.
Okay.
Budgeting is very, very important. You must, and in your budgeting, you must separate it into your needs, your wants, and your savings. Now, the other thing I'd like to say is that you do not save after spending. It is an aberration. You save first and then you spend. There's an adage in my place. Sorry, I went to evening school, so I don't know. I didn't go to evening school. Because that would have meant that she also went to an evening school. That's what I'm saying. That would have meant she went to an
evening school, please. You want to do that?
They say that meaning that the money that does not exist was as in how do I put it now? What is not there cannot be spent.
Exactly.
What is not there cannot be spent. So please, the first thing, you don't spend. And after you finish spending and all of that, whatever is left, you save. You save first and you fit every other thing into what is left. And when I mean every other thing, you fit it into what is left. The other thing is also about investing. And I think we've spoken a lot about it. Please, as you save, keep your eyes on the kind of investment you want to have. Is it real estate? Is it stock? Is it mutual funds? Whatever it is that you want to go into, but you must invest. The other things that you must protect your assets. A lot of us are, we have assets, we are building, we are saving, we're investing, but there's one thing that people shy away from. Insurance. Please, let's not get into this not my portion mentality. Seriously, it's important to insure whatever it is that you're doing. Insure your home, insure your car, insure, it's just because that's one thing that can set you back on your financial journey. Imagine that, God forbid, you get into an accident or something happens, your car is written off. No matter what, even if you say, oh, that money is not for that savings, is for an investment, you need a car to move around. God help you, you're in a cold climate that, you just need a car. It sets you back as against if you're, insured. The other thing I would like to talk about is building a legacy. It's about wills, it's about trust. It's important that we have things called education trust. A lot of us just like wishful thinking. Oh, I want my child to go to Harvard. I want my child to go to UCL. This thing is not just by any goal that does not have a plan. It's just a dream. Any wish, so you must plan towards it. You can do an education trust from when they are born, even if they are now teenagers, even if they are now older, start from somewhere. It's very important. Every month, okay, I'll set aside 50,000. I'll set aside 100,000. Okay, well, I don't have that kind of money. Even if it is, what's it called? Even if it's just 20,000, you can afford. And finally, please write a will. Write a will. A will does not mean you're going to die tomorrow. In fact, research has shown that people that write wills, they even live longer. Write a will is important. I managed, a team called Benefit Administration, and part of what we were responsible for was what we call the diseased application. It's painful. It's painful where you see people come and lay claim to what other people have worked for. You have a choice. You can indicate who you want to own your estate when you're no more. Please, even if it's a simple will, for those of us that are in Nigeria, go to a simple will. It's just how you want your pension assets and your bank assets distributed. It's so important. Life redefines a lot of things. Life redefines. I've seen, or as in, you don't even want to go. If we go into the issue of diseased benefits, we'll be here for 2 days. If I begin to tell you stories, is it mother-in-law fighting with daughter-in-law? Is it brother-in-law fighting with daughter-in-law? Is it father-in-law fighting with son-in-law? Just name it. Name it. People that had no clue, no idea when you were working. And then you see children that, the man or the woman had slaved to, had worked and thought, okay, yes, part of what I'm working is for my children. You see women thrown out of their homes and all of that because, there was no will. People die intestate. Now, let's even assume that you have such a supportive environment. Those things don't happen. The process of getting a letter of administration, because when you die intestate without a will, you have to go and get a letter of administration. You don't even want us to go there. If I tell you that process, everybody right now, just run and go and write will. Don't say, what do I have? You have something. It is when the person dies, I know the person has something. Even the shirt and the trouser, what's it called, these assets. How people will come. I want my brother's shoe. I want my sister's headgear. I want my sister's human, all sorts. So please, let's write a will. It's part of financial planning. It doesn't mean that you're going to die tomorrow. Save, invest, open your mind, read about what's it called. Anywhere you want to play in, whether it's real estate, get materials on it, read, educate yourself. Whether it's mutual funds, go online. There's so much content on YouTube today, on the internet. So that when you're even engaging your, what's it called, your financial advisor, you can, the person is not speaking some financial jargons that you don't understand. I see here, don't your benefits automatically go to next of kin? Please, let me just explain next of kin, Senior Ibi. Next of kin is in case of emergency, who to call. Next of kin is not beneficiary. I beg you in the name of God. Let me speak like Brother Paul. I beseech you by the mercies of the Almighty. Next of kin is just in case of emergency. The financial institution is trying to reach you. Your PFA is trying to reach you. They cannot reach you. Who should we call? That's what next of kin is. Your benefits do not automatically go to your next of kin. Next of kin is not a beneficiary. The only named beneficiary can only be named in a will that is registered in the probate. That is who can be your beneficiary or who is stipulated by a letter of administration. So please don't get into, oh, okay, after all, I've indicated who my next of kin is. This just means in case of emergency, who to call. It does not mean anything. It is not a beneficiary.
Now, I want to just say this quickly, and I want you to just touch on it. So you talked about the differences between, practically speaking now, the differences between needs and wants. You know, so we've spoken now, you've said everything. Now let's put it down and narrow it down. Give us a case study.
Okay, so what are your needs? Your needs, I'll start with, you know, housing is a need. Food is a need. You have a mortgage to pay, that's a need. Your children's school fees is a need. Now, don't forget that even your need must align to your goals. So, and what do I mean by that? There's a percentage of your income that should also go to your needs. You can't have needs that, yes, even though housing is a need, you're in a 5-bedroom apartment, a family of 3 or a 4-bed. What are you looking for? What point are you trying to prove? Because except you're doing Airbnb by the side, or you have basement that you are renting out. Because yes, housing is a need. But does your need have to be that size? Does your need have to be, and you know, and I particularly I like the fact that we have people that are nearing retirement here. One of the things that people must do nearing retirement, they must learn to scale down. People buy SUVs because, oh, we're a family of 7, we're a family of 5. Now it is just you and your spouse and one Larondo still in secondary school. Maybe the baby of the house. What are you still doing with a car that is 4-point-something liter engine and you know you're nearing retirement? Because the thing used to drink fuel. You're no longer going out. Except, of course, you live in areas like my own, where you have to swim. And, you know, SUV is a must. Otherwise, you end up with Uncle Mukaila every weekend. But if that is not the case, because people must learn to scale down. You know, it was a big house at the time. Everybody was around, but now everybody has gone. Can you take out equity from the house? Can you move to a smaller place? And it does not mean that things are bad for you. Because I think Nigerians are very egocentric. You know, people go like, oh, if I move from a 5-bedroom to a 3-bedroom, they'll think I'm struggling. Who cares? Because there are rooms that you're not going to open in that house. You know, you're just going to keep enlarging expense when income is shrinking. When income is shrinking, one of the things that people must do, they must also begin to shrink expense. When income shrinks, you know, retirement assets and all of that, you ask yourself, well, how can I scale down? We have 4 cars in this house, or we have 3 cars. Oh, I had to because at the time I was working, madam is never ready on time. There was need for school runs and all of that. Okay, and a fourth one, just in case the day anyone breaks down. I'm sure some of you that are non-Nigerians will be wondering, do people have 4 cars? Come to my country. Sometimes we have 6, 7, sometimes 7. Ask yourself, there's no more school run. There is no more what's it called. Do we still need this? Won't we both be fine? You know, now that we're just a family of 2, or we're empty nesters, or a family of 3 with 2 cars. Because those are ways that people can plan for retirement and enjoy their retirement and all of that. So I don't know if
Well, Bolanle, that is absolutely fantastic. I mean, you have hit the nail on the head. Time is fast spent, and we must
spend almost 90 minutes.
And you know, and you were saying, what am I going to say? And I said, don't worry, you will have things to say. So guys, this has been a very interesting topic. And oh my gosh, I have a question. Listen, you know what I'm going to, let me just read out the comments here. Somebody
Go
said,
ahead, it's fine.
somebody says, you can't spend a non-existent fund. Just re-echoing what you said, you can only spend within the limit of the funds that you have. Ensure your assets, it's important. Ensure your health.
Thank you for, I think I missed that out. Please ensure your health.
Get a life insurance, build
Absolutely.
a legacy, have a trust in place that would align with your goals and wishes. It's been an amazing session. Thanks a bunch, Bolanle and Ibinabo. And Bolanle, you did a good job. Yeah, so these are questions.
Sorry, Snebina, but before you go on, I just wanted to quickly touch on something, and we can have a different session for it, and it's on debt, on borrowing. And I think I touched on it, slightly. Someone had asked the question. One of the ways that people get, entrapped is, just accumulating debt, and it's a very big trap. I know, especially for those people in the Western world, there's nothing wrong with taking debt. There's nothing wrong with taking monies from the bank, as long as you know that money would yield money. Even in Nigeria, people are also getting into that culture now. You have no business borrowing to travel. You have no business borrowing, to do a burial. You have no business borrowing to do a wedding. Those things are a no-no. On a more serious note, they're a no-no. You cannot take money and just increase your debt profile to fund or finance a lifestyle. I know, yes, the grams right now are very they're very intimidating, and a lot of things are happening and all of that. And there's almost like, even those people that are borrowing people money, they're almost in your face. They're literally tempting you every day. They're offering you all sorts of things. You must have the discipline to ask yourself, this money I want to borrow, is it to generate more money? Is it for investment? Or is it for lifestyle? Or is it just to please, someone? And I just thought to reemphasize that, because that's just one area as well that people get into a lot of trouble.
Fantastic. So somebody says here, it's never too late to start. Don't be afraid to start small. Write a will so you would live longer. That's fantastic. So if you enjoyed this video or this interview, I'd like you to kindly like it, leave a comment. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, it's Ibinabo Enebi. As a matter of fact, if you're watching this program and you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, Bolanle, go and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please help this ministry. Subscribe to my YouTube channel.
I will.
It is Ibinabo Enebi. Subscribe. And guys, I have a website called onewomanity.com. Is a blogging site, and I have interesting reads, so you can check it out. And yes, so I also had an interview with Dr. Madika and Brenda O'Keefe. She's a mental health specialist. This October, I'm doing a series on living well beyond your golden years and beyond. And just check out those interviews, and have other interviews as well. I had my lemonade stories that was really flying very well. And someone says, yeah, I will immediately. People go. And someone says, send your link to your YouTube and website. Well, so guys, next week I have a coach who will be speaking to retired people who are planning on retirement, because I'm big on it. I have a lot of people around me who are retired or who are retiring. And of course, once you are in the 5th floor, like I am, you have to start planning towards those times. So I'm going to have a coach who would talk about retirement. She's going to tell us about the commonly asked questions that retired people ask, and a lot of things. So I would like you to join me. And yeah, that's it. And so thank you very much. And Bolanle, I will call you. And thanks everyone for being part of this program. I'm super excited.
Thank you,
and I'll see you next week. And please, guys, subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's Ibinabo Enebi. I'm sorry that the camera wasn't working. Okay, so guys, I have my Prof. Thank you so much. You've been an amazing assistant. I'm very, very appreciative of your support. And the link to my website, onewomanity.com, is there. And the link to my YouTube channel is also there for everyone to see. And I'll say thank you, and I'll see you again next week. Bolanle, mwah, mwah, mwah.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining. Thank you so much. Thank you, Prof. Thanks, Damola.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eddie.
Bye.